Assalamu alaikum. I am Adnan Shif, faculty member ComSet Institute of Information Technology. Today is our fourth session of our course Issues in Accounting Practices. The session is regarding review of accounting information system. When we're talking about a review of accounting information systems, we have studied already in your BBA that what the accounting information system is, what the debit, what the credit, what the all trial balance, what the adjusting entries, what the adjusted trial balance, what the closing entries, what the balance sheets, what the income statements, and all these statements have been studied. We are just going to go through from this thing so that you can have a reminder in your overall courses. So we have just these two lectures are based on this one and the next one. These are based on the review of accounting information systems. We also address certain issues regarding these accounting information system, what these issues exist और कौन-कौन से issues इसके अंदर address किए जाते हैं. वो सारे issues जो हैं इसमें हम account for करते जाएंगे और इनको account for करने के लिए we mostly go for the further practicing and applications because the course is regarding issues in accounting practices and and when we talk about the issues in accounting practices we need to see what practices involve what type of things. So it's just a review of accounting information system what you have already studied. Okay. Now the learning objectives are to understand the basic accounting terminologies, explain double entry rules, that's what we are talking all about, identify the steps of accounting cycles, record transactions in journals, posting to ledger and prepare trial balance and explain the reason of adjusting entries. We just confine it towards here. Now this is the whole thing that we are going to study. First is the basic terminologies, then debit, credit, accounting equation, financial statement and ownership structure. Accounting cycle, identifying and recording, generalizing, posting trial balance, adjusting entry, adjusted trial balance, financial statements, closing, post-closing trial balance and reversing entries. These are the being studied in this session. Income statement, statement of retained earnings, balance sheet, closing entries, all these things are being studied in this lecture. Accounting information system collects and processes the transaction data, disseminate the information to interested parties. Interested parties are many others. That means all the interested parties are over there. Basic terminologies. When we talk about events, means any transaction would be occurred. Transaction means that for that specific measurement you have done any single transaction or means posting in a journal. Account means that there is something that on which you have a certain head of account in which you have to post all that type that nature transactions. Real account, then there is nominal account, ledgers, journal, posting trial balance, adjusting entry, financial statement, closing entries. These all things are included in the accounting information systems. Most things are the real account and nominal account. These are something that is permanent account there and one is known as temporary account. Now there is a debits and credits. The account shows the effect of transaction on given asset, liability, equity, revenue or expenses. Means all these has an effect on asset, liability, equity, revenue and expenses. Double entry accounting system, two-sided effects. When there is something debit, then there must be something credit. Recording done by the debiting at least one account and crediting another account. That means that is the way of recording the transactions, that one should be debited and another should be credited. Debit must equals to the credit. That you already know that there must be an equality among these two things. Debit account, an arrangement that shows effect of transaction on an account. Debit on always be on the left side, credit on always be on the right side. Then down you can see that there is a T account form that is given, that debit and other is the credit. If debit entries are greater than credit entries, the account will be a debit balance. That means you can see in the down example that 10,000 transaction 1, 10,000 transaction 3, 8,000 transaction 2, 3,000. Now you have seen that the debit side is greater than credit side, that means there is a debit balance. That means the account has a debit balance, and that is of 15,000, because 10 plus 18,000 minus 3,000, that equals to the 15,000. That equals to the 15,000. If credits are greater than debit entries, the account will have a credit balance. Now you can see that the debit side is 10,000, credit side is 3,000 and 8,000. So it got to be the 11,000, and when we minus the debit balance, that is 11 minus 10,000, the balance would be of 1,000. You can see that there is a balance of 1,000. Debit and credit summary, how that occurs: normal balance, credit. Asset side, normal balance, debit side always increases, credit side it means asset is decreasing. Expense side, debit is in the debit side, expense is increasing and credit is decreasing. Liability side, debit, in the debit side it decreases and credit side it increases. Equity side, debit side it decreases, credit side it increases, and revenue side, debit side it decreases, credit side increases. So in the normal case, liability, equity and revenue shows credit balance, asset, expenses shows debit balance. Debit and credit summaries. Asset is equal to liability plus equity, revenue minus expenses. Means to say, balance sheet, that means asset is equal to liability plus equity, and income means revenue minus expenses. So both have debit and credit balance. So you can see that in the debit balance the asset increases, and whereas expenses also increases, but in liability decreases, revenue decreases, equity decreases. But in credit side, asset decreases, expenses decreases, and all other will increase. Relationship among the asset, liability and stockholders equity of a business. Illustration: basic equation, asset is equal to liability plus stockholders equity. Expanded equation, now we have expanded the equation. Asset, there is a debit and credit. Liability, there is a debit and credit. Common stock, there is a debit and credit. Retained earning, there is a debit and credit. Dividend, debit and credit. Revenues, debit and credit. And expense is the debit and credit. Now you have seen that asset, there is always be equal to liability plus stockholders equity. Common stock is related to stockholders equity. Retained earning is related to stockholders equity. Dividend is related to stockholders equity. Revenue is related to stockholders equity. Expenses are related to stockholders equity. These all things are related to stockholders equity. These all things are related. Not a single one. All things are related to stockholders equity. The equation must be in balance after every transaction. That each equation should be balanced after each and every transaction. For every debit there must be something credit. हर डेबिट के लिए there must be something credit, और दोनों को equal होना जरूरी है. Double entry system illustration. Owner is invest 40,000 in exchange for common stock. What does the owner do? उसने क्या किया? उसने $40,000 का exchange में common stock purchase कर लिया. Everything is being purchased. और जब उसने purchase किया है, it means that everything is being assorted. तो क्या किया उसने कि $40,000 दिए हैं और उसके अगेंस्ट कॉमन स्टॉक परचेज कर लिए. So what we have purchased, it's a common stock. Common stock means equity. Equity must be credited. Equity must be credited and cash must be debited, because cash is the asset and equity is the your ownership equity. Means to say, cash is that the 40,000 goes to your equity, and that after all increased your cash. So and journal entry would be cash to capital stock or owner's capital. So that would be 40,000 asset has increased, 40,000 stockholders equity has increased. Both have increased. So in that case, where the entry would be capital stock cash to capital stock. Second one, disperse $600 cash for sectorial wages. Now wages are being done. Wages are what? Expense or liability? It's an expense. And when there is an expense, what does that mean? And given through cash. Cash is always be on the asset side. That means cash has reduced towards lower level. That means minus 600. That comes to their level. Now, and expenses, minus 600 from where it is given? Stockholders' equity as an expense. That 40,000 given as a cash, that reduced by 600, and from where we got that? It is got from the shareholders' equity of 40,000. Purchase office equipments priced at $5,200, giving a 10% promissory note in exchange. Now, what is going to be happen here? Purchase of office equipment purchase किए कितने के? $5,200 के, and 10% promissory note in exchange here. In other words, promissory note means loan पे खरीद लिए, लोन पे उन्होंने ऑफिस इक्विपमेंट परचेज किए कितने के? $5,200 का. जब लोन पे परचेज किया इसका मतलब है लोन इंक्रीज कर गया, तो दैट मीन्स $5,200 से लायबिलिटी इंक्रीज कर गई है. लेकिन ऑन द अदर हैंड ऑफिस इक्विपमेंट भी तो आया है ना, तो दैट बिकम्स एसेट इज ऑल्सो बीइंग एडेड. So that means 5,200 would be added on liability side and also on the asset side. Both side it would be added. कि दोनों साइड पे से हम बराबर से एड अप कर लेंगे. Received $4,000 cash for service rendered. अब जो सर्विसेज हम दे चुके थे उसके लिए हमें रेवेन्यू कितना आया? $4,000. तो क्या चीज इंक्रीज करेगी इसमें? आपकी ओवरऑल स्टॉक होल्डर्स इक्विटी, बिकॉज डायरेक्टली रेवेन्यू किस पे अफेक्ट कर रहा होता है? स्टॉक होल्डर्स इक्विटी पे, और साथ ही आपका एसेट भी बढ़ जाएगा. दोनों साइड पे इंक्रीज करेंगे. स्टॉक होल्डर्स इक्विटी भी इंप्रूव कर गई है और एसेट्स भी 4,000 इंक्रीज कर गए हैं. Pay off short-term liability of $7,000. Now we have paid the liabilities. और liabilities जब पे की जाती हैं तो कैश से पे की जाती हैं, और कैश से जब पे की जाती हैं तो इसका मतलब है कैश इज अ पार्ट ऑफ एसेट्स. किसका पार्ट है? वो एसेट्स का पार्ट है. और जब वो एसेट्स का पार्ट है तो इसका मतलब है दैट मीन्स 7,000 assets will be reduced and liability will also be reduced by 7,000. That's, you can see that both are reduced at the same time. Declared a cash dividend of $5,000. $5,000 का कैश डिविडेंड डिक्लेयर किए. तो कैश डिविडेंड किसमें से दिया जाएगा? पेड आउट ऑफ द कैश, मींस पेड आउट ऑफ द एसेट्स. एंड हु वुड बी द गेनर ऑफ दैट थिंग? द गेनर इज द इन्वेस्टर्स इक्विटी. So that means that is getting out of the investors equity. So first, the liability has increased how much? 5,000, because the dividend is just declared. It is not being paid. और जब कोई चीज डिक्लेयर कर दी जाती है, पे नहीं की जाती, वो आपके पास अमाउंट लाइबिलिटी बन जाती है. वो क्या बन जाती है आपके पास? लाइबिलिटी. एंड व्हेन इट बिकम्स लाइबिलिटी, दैट मींस वी आर लायबल टू पे 5,000 टू द इन्वेस्टर्स, एंड stockholders equity being reduced by 5,000, because the retained earning is also being a part of stockholders equity. And when we are paying the dividend, it is paid out of the retained earning and income. So in that case, stockholders equity has decreased. Convert a long term liability of 80,000 into a common stock. क्या किया उसने? लाइबिलिटी को कन्वर्ट कर लिए कॉमन स्टॉक में. इसका मतलब है लाइबिलिटी वुड बी डिक्रीज्ड एंड कॉमन स्टॉक मींस स्टॉक होल्डर इक्विटी हैज इंक्रीज्ड. सो व्हाट डज दैट मीन? 80,000 लाइबिलिटी रिड्यूस्ड एंड 80,000 स्टॉक होल्डर्स इक्विटी एडेड. Paid cash of $16,000 for a delivery van. Now what is that thing? Is it a expense, cash, or whatsoever? It's an expense because it's a delivery van. So it means that it is the expense, and when the expense is generated, asset would reduced and asset is also being added. Both our activities are on the सेम साइड, बिकॉज ये कैश किसके लिए पे किए? डिलीवरी वैन के लिए पे किया है, यानी कि डिलीवरी वैन परचेज की है. तो जब डिलीवरी वैन परचेज की है तो एसेट हमारा इंक्रीज हो गया, लेकिन पे किस में से की है? कैश में से. तो कैश जो 16,000 रिड्यूस हो गया, एसेट साइड पे डिलीवरी वैन 16,000 से ऐड हो गई. So that means both the transaction has happened on the asset side. Note that the accounting equation equality is maintained after recording each transaction. हर ट्रांजैक्शन के बाद हमने इक्वालिटी को बरकरार रखना है, वो हम लोग नहीं हिला सकते. इफ द इक्वालिटी वुड बी डिस्टर्ब्ड, देन देयर इज ऑलवेज बी अ डिफरेंस इन बैलेंस शीट assets and liabilities, and also being spurious results of income statement. Financial statements and ownership structure. Now that's an issue. Now we are talking about the issues that are related to our information systems. Ownership structure dictates the type of accounts that are part of equity sections. Mostly हर तरह की जो ओनरशिप स्ट्रक्चर है वो डिसाइड करता है कि किस तरह के अकाउंट्स को किस तरह के इक्विटी सेक्शंस में डालना चाहिए. प्रोप्राइटर और पार्टनरशिप, दैट इज समथिंग डिफरेंट, एंड कॉर्पोरेशन, दैट इज समथिंग डिफरेंट. बोथ अकाउंटिंग हैज अ डिफरेंट नेचर. So it has a capital account and it has a drawing account, whereas it has a common stock, additional paid in capital, dividend declared, and retained earning. Now there is a difference among the accounts. Both are the owners, but they are talking about capital accounts and drawing accounts. They are talking about common stock, additional paid in capital, dividend declared, and retained earnings. These all are being announced over here. Now, financial statements and ownership structure. Balance sheet, stockholders equity, common stock, retained earning, dividend, net income. Now you can see that there is a small web style thing in which the financial statement and ownership structure both are being merged and togethered. Two things are included in shareholders equity. One is common stock and other one is the retained earning. But common stock is being always affected by कि अगर मैं और शेयर इंट्रोड्यूस कराऊंगा तो ये इंक्रीज करेगा, लेकिन जब मैं रिटेन अर्निंग की बात करूं वो दो चीजों से अफेक्ट करता है. नेट इनकम अगर होगी तो वो एट द एंड क्लोज किस में होगी, रिटेन अर्निंग में होगी. लेकिन रिटेन अर्निंग में से कोई चीज आउट भी हो रही होगी, वो होगी डिविडेंड्स. मैं डिविडेंड्स दूंगा तो किस में से दूंगा, आउट ऑफ द रिटेन अर्निंग. सो दैट मींस डिविडेंड एंड नेट इनकम that always affects the retained earning. However, the common stock will always be affected by the new issues. Means to say IPOs, initial public offerings, and that's why it is known as statement of retained earning, because statement of retained earning के लिए दो चीजें involve होंगी, net income and dividends. They collectively forms the statement of retained earnings. The accounting cycle, as we have talked about in our objective, and that's the objective number 3, identify the steps in accounting cycle. From where you can see that that's a pure cycle. So what we say is from where we should start it. हमें कहाँ से इसे start करना चाहिए? It starts from the transactions because it's a base. हमने स्टार्ट इसे ट्रांजैक्शन से कर रहे हैं, बिकॉज ट्रांजैक्शन के बाद पहली चीज आती है जर्नलाइजिंग, मींस टू से पासिंग द एंट्री एंड देन पोस्टिंग इट टू द लेजर, एंड आफ्टर दैट इट कम्स टू द ट्रायल बैलेंस. आफ्टर दैट देयर इज अ एडजस्टमेंट्स, मींस एडजस्टिंग entries, and after that there would be a adjusted trial balance. Now what we are going to do is we have to explain each and everything regarding these adjustments and financial statement. Means to say we are going to study the full accounting cycle, a review on it, overview on it, so that we have an understanding for our further topics that are going to be the advanced form of these things and advanced issues in the accounting. Adjusted trial balance. After that adjusted trial balance, the other thing is the financial statements, means balance sheet, income statement, all these things are being developed through the adjusted trial balance. And after the financial statement there would be a closing entries, means to say the entries where it close, and the last one is the posting closing trial balance. After closing all the entries of income statement, there would be a trial balance that is known as post-closing trial balance. And after that, if there is any reversing entries, then we also do some reversing entries. Means to say, in December, आपने किया ये कि आपने कहा ये December 30th आ गया, अभी मैंने सैलरी नहीं दी 30th की, तो आप क्या करेंगे, सैलरी एक्सपेंस टू सैलरी पेएबल. एक तरीका ये कि आप सैलरी पेएबल्स टू कैश करेंगे, एक तरीका ये कि आप प्रॉपरली दोबारा एंट्री को रिवर्स करेंगे एंड देन डू सैलरी एक्सपेंस टू कैश. So there are two things. the first one is without reversing and other one is a reversing. We are going to study it in a further things. Identify and recording transaction. What to record? FASB states transaction and other events and circumstances that affects a business enterprise. क्या रिकॉर्ड करना चाहिए? जो ट्रांजैक्शंस बिजनेस एंटरप्राइज को अफेक्ट करनी है, दे शुड बी रिकॉर्डिंग. ये हर सूरत उन्हें रिकॉर्ड होना चाहिए. टाइप्स ऑफ इवेंट्स, एक्सटर्नल इवेंट्स होते हैं और कुछ इंटरनल इवेंट्स होते हैं. एक्सटर्नल बिटवीन बिजनेसेस एंड इट्स एनवायरनमेंट, कोई भी हो सकते हैं. मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक फैक्टर्स आ सकते हैं, कंपटीशन हो सकता है अमंग बिजनेसेस. दीज ऑल आर द एक्सटर्नल एनवायरनमेंट्स. इंटरनल इवेंट अकरिंग एंटायर विद इन अ बिजनेस, यानी कि जो जो इवेंट्स अकर हो रहे हैं विद इन अ बिजनेस, दैट इज नोन एज इंटरनल इवेंट्स. मीन्स टू से पॉलिसी में चेंज आ रहा है, कोई और चेंज आ रहा है, ओनरशिप चेंज हो रही है, नए बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स आ रहे हैं, एनी अदर थिंग, दैट इज नोन एज इंटरनल इवेंट्स. फर्स्ट इज जनरलाइजिंग. Generalizing, a chronicle record of transaction, journal entries are recorded. For example, September 1, shareholders invested $15,000 cash in a corporation in exchange of share of stocks. Now, what I am talking about the earlier, capital to cash, capital stock to cash. So you can say, cash to capital stock. So you can see that the same entry is being passed, cash to capital stock, that is being written over here. Now the posting. Now we have to post that entry. Entry क्या थी? Cash to capital stock. क्या उससे क्या करेंगे? Now we have to identify the ledgers. दो ledgers बनेंगे, दो अकाउंट है ना, एक कैश का और एक कैपिटल स्टॉक का है. So कैश का जनरल लेजर अलग होगा, कैपिटल स्टॉक का जनरल लेजर अलग होगा. So we post it separately. And posting क्या करेंगे? September 12, जनरल लेजर 15,000 and that is of 15,000. Now that is the ledger of cash. सिर्फ हमने कैश का, अभी हमने कॉमन स्टॉक का भी पोस्टिंग नहीं किया, हमने सिर्फ किसको पोस्ट किया? कैश को पोस्ट किया. पोस्टिंग, ट्रांसफरिंग अमाउंट फ्रॉम जनरल लेजर. अब लेजर से हमने अकाउंट ट्रांसफर किए. फर्स्ट वन आप देख सकते हैं, जनरल लेजर किसका है? कैश का. दूसरा किसका है? कॉमन स्टॉक का. और कॉमन स्टॉक में वो क्रेडिट बैलेंस में आया है और इसमें डेबिट बैलेंस में आया है. फॉलोइंग द एंट्रीज, एंट्री को फॉलो कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि कैश का बैलेंस डेबिट में आया था और कैपिटल स्टॉक का बैलेंस किस में आया था? क्रेडिट में आया था. इन दोनों का बैलेंस आपस में डिफरेंट में था. सो दैट मींस कैपिटल स्टॉक बैलेंस इज ऑन क्रेडिट एंड जनरल कैश स्टॉक इज ऑन डेबिट. Expanded example. The purpose of transaction analysis is to identify the type of account. Because इसका पर्पस क्या है इस पोस्टिंग का? कि हम अलग कर लेंगे इस बार कैश की ट्रांजैक्शंस कितनी हुई हैं, कैपिटल स्टॉक की ट्रांजैक्शंस कितनी हुई हैं, दोनों को हम सेपरेट कर लें ताकि हमें पता लगे कि ये इंडिविजुअल लेवल पे किस लेवल पे लाया कर रहे हैं. और जो इनके ऊपर नेम लिखा होता है जैसे कैश या कैपिटल स्टॉक, इसे कहा जाता है हेड ऑफ अकाउंट, because it is as mentioned in the same manner in the financial statements. So identify the type of account involved and to determine whether a debit or credit is required. इसका मतलब क्या होता है? To find कि whether debit required है या credit required है. Because both balance have already have the same thing and when they are added, they are being assigned either debit balance or credit balance. Keep in mind that every journal entry affects one or more following items: asset, liability, stockholder equity, revenue और expenses. ये सारे आइटम्स हैं ना, इसके अलावा कोई आइटम्स अकाउंट्स में एग्जिस्ट नहीं करते. या तो कोई चीजें एसेट्स होती हैं, या लाइबिलिटीज होती हैं, या रेवेन्यू होती हैं, या एक्सपेंस होती हैं, या इक्विटी होती है. इसके अलावा कोई और चीज नहीं एग्जिस्ट करती. इनमें से किसी दो या दो से ज्यादा को वो अफेक्ट कर रहा होता है. So the posting. October 1, stockholders invest $100,000 cash in an advertising venture to be known as Pioneer Advertising Agency. Now stockholders किधर इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं? एडवर्टाइजिंग एजेंसी को कर रहे हैं. और स्टॉक होल्डर्स इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं मींस दैट इट्स अ कॉमन स्टॉक. और कॉमन स्टॉक का मतलब ये है कि कैश 100,000 एंड कॉमन स्टॉक 100,000 क्रेडिट. मींस कॉमन स्टॉक मींस शेयर होल्डर्स ने ये पैसे दिए. सो दैट मींस कैश टू कॉमन स्टॉक. सो दो टू लेजर्स, cash 100,000 and common stock 100,000. Next one, Pioneer Advertising purchases office equipment costing 50,000 by signing 3 months 12%, 50% note payable. Now two things are involved. One is office equipment and other one is the note payable. So that means we have two accounts for it that would be hitting. So what first one is the purchase of office equipment, so we debit office equipment. So that is 50,000, and what we are going to credit is the note payable 50,000. So two accounts, one is of equipment and other one is of notes payable. So you can say that one has a debit balance and other one has a credit balance. October 2, Pioneer Advertising receive a $12,000 cash advance from KC, a client for advertising service that are expected to be completed by December 31st. एक एडवर्टाइजिंग सर्विस है, पायोनियर एडवर्टाइजिंग ने रिसीव किए हैं 12,000 कैश फ्रॉम KC, a client for advertising services that are expected to be completed in 31st December. So first thing क्या आएगी, कैश रिसीव हुए ना, कैश एंड देन अनअर्न्ड रिसीव्ड रेवेन्यू. क्यों का है अनअर्न्ड रेवेन्यू? बिकॉज ये आपको जो सर्विसेज हैं वो आप कब पूरी करके देंगे, 31st December. If you haven't completed that services, you are going to return back this 12,000. So that 12,000 would be your liability until you are going to provide them the services. So that's why it is known as unearned service revenue. And remind it, unearned service revenue is a liability because it can be returned at any cost if the services would not be completed. So cash, debit balance 100,000 and unearned revenue of rupees 12,000. So 1 lakh of previous transaction that we have put it in when we did the transaction of cash to capital stock, in which the shareholders and invest $100,000 for advertising campaign. So both are being added in a cash side. October 3, Pioneer Advertising pays $9,000 office rents in cash for October. Now what they are going to do is, Pioneer Advertising have paid 9,000 rent pay kiya. Now what the rent is, asset, liability, expense, revenue or whatsoever, or equity? It's an expense. It includes expense. An expense always means that pays, that means it is paid out of the cash. So that means that the entry would be rent expense to cash, and cash is 9,000. So cash would now be on the credit side, that is 9,000 on the debit rent and 9,000 on the cash credit. On October 4, Pioneer Advertising pays $6,000 for 1 year insurance policy that will expire next year on September 30. Now they have paid for the insurance policy 6,000 for 1 year. So what is now the entry would be? The entry would be includes prepaid insurance because 1 year insurance is being paid already, और जो कब एक्सपायर होगी, नेक्स्ट ईयर एक्सपायर होगी, प्रीवियस ईयर की नहीं. क्योंकि हम लोग जो बेस कर रहे होते हैं, मैंने पहले ही बताया था फर्स्ट लेक्चर में, वी आर बेसिंग ऑन अक्रूअल बेस्ड ऑफ अकाउंटिंग, अक्रूअल बेसिस ऑफ अकाउंटिंग. एंड व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट अक्रूअल बेसिस ऑफ अकाउंटिंग, इट मींस दैट all the accounting would be done when you have taken the services. और अभी जो आपने पे किया है इंश्योरेंस को, उसकी अभी आपने सर्विसेज नहीं ली हैं, आपने उसका ऑलरेडी पेमेंट करते. दैट्स व्हाई इट इज नोन एज प्रीपेड इंश्योरेंस. एंड क्रेडिट वुड बी कैश. The cash would be credited, and when the cash is credited, then again there would be a balance of cash would be on the credit side. And prepaid insurance has a new account of debit side, and credit side there would be a 6,000 rupees, sorry, dollars. There would be a $6,000. Now the October 5, Pioneer Advertising purchased for $25,000 on account and estimated 3 months supply of advertising material and aero supply. Now what they have purchased? 3 months supply of advertising material. Advanced purchasing na. So the entry would be supplies of advertising 25,000, and for how much estimated 3 month supply means to say they have purchased on account. So that means it's an account payable. So account payable would be of 20,000. Now the new account would be developed of 25,000. Supplies account would also be developed, and it is on the debit side, and account payable account would be on the credit side. October 9, Pioneer Advertising sign a contract with a local newspaper for advertising insert flyers to be distributed starting the last Sunday in November. Pioneer will start work on the content of flyer in November. Payment of $7,000 is due to the following delivery of Sunday paper containing the flyers. They are going to say the flyers यहाँ पे इंट्रोड्यूस हो रहे हैं, यानी कि flyers वो दिए जा रहे हैं, मीन्स टू से जो ब्रोशर्स हमारे अखबारों के बीच में आते हैं, that are known to be as a flyers, जिसमें कोई भी चीज हो, कोई भी एडवर्टाइजमेंट हो, जब आप उस अखबार को खोलते हैं तो अंदर एक छोटा सा पेज पड़ा होता है जिसके अंदर ये चीजें लिखी होती हैं. That is talking about that flyers to be distributed starting the last Sunday in November. वो कब शुरू हो रहा था? लास्ट संडे ऑफ नवंबर. Pioneer will start work on the content of flyer on November. Payment of 7,000 due to following the delivery of Sunday's paper. 7,000 पेमेंट किसको दे करनी है? For the delivery of Sunday's paper containing the flyer, जिनमें flyer exist करता था. The business transaction has not occurred. There is only an agreement between Pioneer Advertising and the newspaper for a service to be provided in November. Therefore, no journal entry is necessary in October. Now, one more thing. Keep in mind, when we talk about a certain level of transaction in a November, that is going to be happen in November because it is being in the last Sunday of November. But we are talking about October 9. So what we have to do? We have to do nothing because October में तो कुछ हो ही नहीं रहा. ये सारा कुछ कब हो रहा है? नवंबर में हो रहा है, और नवंबर के बाद ही सारी चीजें आगे जा रही हैं. तो दैट मींस इट हैज नो लिंक विद द अक्टूबर. सो दैट मींस नो एंट्री नीड्स टू बी पास. जिस महीने में जो एक्सपेंस हुआ है दैट शुड आल्सो रिकॉर्डेड इन द सेम मंथ. व्हाट वी हैव टॉक्ड अबाउट इन द लास्ट लेक्चर अबाउट द मैचिंग प्रिंसिपल. लास्ट लेक्चर में हमने ये डिस्कस किया था ना कि हमने मैचिंग रखनी है कि जिस चीज का एक्सपेंस है उसी के साथ वो मैच किया जाए, उसके अलावा किसी और चीज से वो मैच नहीं किया जाए. Posting October 20, Pioneer Advertising Board of Directors declares and pays 5,000 cash dividend to stockholder. Now there is not only declared, because अगर सिर्फ declared होता तो that would be on the liability side. Now it's declared and paid cash dividend to stockholders. Cash dividend हुआ तो इसका मतलब है it should be paid out of the cash. So that means cash should have the credit side of 5,000. The entry would be dividends to cash. Dividends means 5,000 and cash 5,000 debit and cash means 5,000 credit. And another account would be dividend. Dividend has the debit balance of 5,000 and cash would have the credit balance of 5,000. Clear? Posting October 26. Now we are just talking about October. We are not talking about anything of November. Employees are paid every 4 weeks. The total payroll is $2,000 per day. The pay period ends on Friday, October 26, with salaries of 40,000 being paid. उन्हें पर डे के हिसाब से पे किया जाता है, दैट इज $2,000, और अक्टूबर 26 तक उनका जो एंडेड पे पीरियड है वो एंड होता है, और उसके साथ सैलरीज कितनी बन रही है उसके पास 40,000. नाउ सैलरीज आर ऑलवेज ही पेड इन कैश, एंड व्हेन कैश इज पेड दैट मींस 40,000 कैश वुड बी क्रेडिटेड. सो द एंट्री वुड बी salary expense, that is all, and cash is credit. Salary expense is credited by 40,000 and cash is salary expense is debited by 40,000 and cash is credited by 40,000. So when the cash is credited, that means the salary account would be opened, and with the debit balance and credit account of cash would be increased by 40,000. October 31st, Pioneer Advertising received 28,000 in cash and Bill Cooper Company 72,000 for advertising service of 100,000 provided in October. वो इस फर्स्ट ट्रांजेक्शन, जो पहली ट्रांजेक्शन हमने की थी वो कितने की थी? $100,000, जिसमें कैपिटल यानी स्टॉक होल्डर्स ने हमें $1,000 दिए थे फॉर एडवर्टाइजिंग कैंपेन. उसमें से उसने क्या मिला? Pioneer Advertising received 28,000 in cash and Bill Cooper Company 72,000 for advertising services of 1,000 provided in October. So 72,000 of Bill Cooper and 28,000 in cash received by Pioneer. So the entry would be like this: cash 28,000, account receivable 72,000 and service revenue would be 100,000. Means to say we have received, Pioneer Advertising has received 28,000 in cash and Bill Cooper company received 72,000. उसमें से टोटल में से 1 लाख में से 72,000 जो थे वो अभी आपके पास रिसीवेबल में आ गए एंड कैश में कितना रिसीव हो चुका है 28,000. सो द टोटल वुड बी सर्विस रेवेन्यू 100,000. वो अब हमें रियलाइज हो गया है, पहले ये रियलाइज नहीं हुआ था. 28,000 and then account receivable 72,000 and then service revenue that we have 100,000. Now we are going to total it. What is the balance? It's a credit balance, debit balance, every balance. So for the cash you can see that there is a debit balance of 80,000. यानी हमारे पास कितना balance है? Debit balance of 80,000 because it's on the debit side and debit side is heavier than credit side. So now starting with the trial balance, cash 80,000 we have included, account receivable is also being of 72,000, supplies are also of 25,000 that we have already noted it, prepaid insurance is also of 6,000. All these accounts in which we have put it them in a separate head. We didn't total it because they include only single value on the either debit side or a credit side. So that means they have only one value on the debit or credit. That means we all know that it has either a credit balance or a debit balance because there is no add subtraction required. Equipment that is of 50,000 we have purchased, notes payable that is also 50,000, accounts payable 25,000, unearned service revenue 12,000, common stock 100,000, dividend 5,000, service revenue 100,000, salaries and wages expense 40,000, rent expense 9,000. And when we are going to add them, they have the same balance. Remember that trial balance always have the same debit and credit balance, otherwise it is imbalance and you can't done further calculations. So that means trial balance should be equal on the debit and credit side. And trial balance, what it is called as the list of each account, its balance used to prove equality of debit and credit balance. Adjusting entries. Now start with the adjusting entries. What the adjusting entries are and how they works. Make it possible to report on statement of financial position and appropriate asset liability equity at the statement date. Means to say when the period are going to be closed, in that case reporting a financial position with the appropriate asset liability and equity at the statement. Means to say we are going to make it an appropriate asset liability or equity at the statement. Every statement should have this type of thing. Means to say closing or adjusting at the year end, month end or whatsoever. Mostly it is done on the month end, in which each and every expense of that month would be closed in that specific month. As we have already seen that in October we didn't deal with the November transactions. We have passed no entry for the November transaction. We are only concerned with the October transactions. Report on the income statement the proper revenues and expense for the first period. यानी कि हम जरूरत क्या थी इसमें, revenue और expenses जिस पीरियड में हुए हैं उसी पीरियड में account for हों. Matching principle again. So that's why adjustment and adjusting entries should be done. Revenues are recorded in the period in which they are earned. Revenue किस में record की जाते हैं? In the period in which they are earned. Expense are recorded in the period in which they are earned. That यही important चीज है. इन्हीं की वजह से adjusting entries वजूद में आई. अगर ये ना होते तो adjusting entries वजूद में ना आती और adjusting entries ना बन पाती. So types of adjusting entries. First one is the prepaid expenses, accrued revenue, unearned revenue, accrued expenses. Prepaid expenses की बात करते हैं. Expenses paid in cash and recorded as an asset before they are used or consumed. आप किसी asset का किसी भी expense का पहले से payment कर दें और उसमें से ऐसा सा डिडक्शन करें, that means आपने उसकी सर्विसेज बाद में ली हैं, पेमेंट पहले की हैं. That why it is known as prepaid expense. That's why the before is highlighted because that means it is recorded before you have taken that service or that expense. Accrued revenue, रेवेन्यू अर्न बट नॉट येट रिसीव्ड इन कैश। जब आप जो है अक्रूवल बेसिस पे चल रहे हैं तो बाकी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन भी तो अक्रूवल बेसिस पे चलेंगी ना, मींस दे आर आल्सो बीइंग बेस्ड ऑन द अक्रूवल सेक्शंस। अक्रूवल सेक्शंस मींस दे आल्सो वांट टू टेक सर्विसेज फर्स्ट एंड देन वांट टू पे। So first we are going to provide them also services and then they are going to pay us. Because they are also working on the accrual basis. Unearned revenue, revenue received in cash recorded as liability. बहुत से revenues ऐसे होते हैं जिसमें हम उसको रिकॉर्ड तो किए कैश में भी किया जाता है लेकिन उसे हम लाइबिलिटी के तौर पर रखते हैं, जिसे हम कहते हैं अनअर्न्ड रेवेन्यू। अनअर्न्ड रेवेन्यू की जब हम बात करते हैं तो उसमें यह आ जाता है कि फॉर एग्जाम्पल व्हेन यू हैव आर गोइंग ऑन द एरोप्लेन एंड यू हैव टेकन जस्ट बोर्डिंग एंड जस्ट बुक योर टिकट ऑफ एनी प्लेस फॉर एग्जाम्पल and you book the ticket and you have paid it. Now if the plane somehow wouldn't be able to depart at that time or wouldn't be able to depart at that specific plane, what does the airline company has to do? They have to return back your money. So what does that mean? Till the services has not been provided, everything is being calculated in as unearned revenue. किसमें include होगा वो? Unearned revenue में include होगा. Because you have taken the money before but you haven't provided services. If any by chance you wouldn't be able to provide the services, that means you have to return back your money, return back the money to your customers. So that's why it is known as unearned revenue. It would be earned if once you have provided all of the services. Accrued expenses, expenses incurred but not yet paid in cash. For example, mostly the salaries would be paid in Pakistan on 5th of every month or 10th of every month. So on the 30th, but the month would be closed. That means you have taken the services of whole month, but you haven't paid yet. So you make it a liability that you have the accrued expenses, but you haven't paid them. उन्हें अभी तक आपने pay नहीं किया. एडजस्टिंग एंट्रीज फॉर डेफरल्स, कुछ एडजस्टिंग एंट्रीज डेफरल्स की भी होती हैं कि डेफर कर दी जाती हैं कुछ चीजें, जैसे एक्सपेंस डेफर किए जाते हैं, टैक्सेस डेफर किए जाते हैं, हर चीज की डेफर्स होते हैं. डेफरल्स आर इधर प्रीपेड एक्सपेंसेस और अनअर्न्ड रेवेन्यू. प्रीपेड एक्सपेंसेस मींस those which have prepaid and unearned revenues means those who are liabilities. Means to say we are just talking about those in which we have lapsed by the time. एक हमने पहले पे कर दिया है, एक हमने बाद में सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड करनी है. So both had the time lapses, and when there is a time lapses, that is known as deferrals. First one, adjusting entry, prepaid expense, asset unadjusted balance, credit adjusting entry, and expense debit adjusting entry. Now what we are doing to do is prepaid expense would be debit adjusting entry and credit adjusting entry. That is the basic thing of prepaid expense. Whenever we are going to pass the entry for prepaid expense, suppose we have prepaid expense or 1 month prepaid expense, so after passing of 1 month we have just passed the entry that the prepaid expense debit and prepaid expense credit. Means to say we start declining assets. That's why they are saying that adjusting entries passed in which asset would be decreased and expense would be increased in case of prepaid expense. कि उस प्रीपेड एक्सपेंस में क्या होता है कि जैसे ही आप प्रीपेड एक्सपेंस पे एडजस्टिंग एंट्री पास करते हैं तो एसेट रिड्यूस हो जाता है और एक्सपेंस इंक्रीज कर जाता है. फॉर अनअर्न्ड रेवेन्यू, डेबिट एडजस्टिंग एंट्रीज माइनस अनएडजस्टेड बैलेंस on the right hand side, and revenue credit adjusting entry. Now when we are going to first identify, suppose you are running an aeroplane company and you have just sold 100 tickets and the flight is going to be going to take off at the end of this month. So that means you have all the unearned revenue of that 100 tickets. So what we have, you have passed the entry cash to unearned revenue. But if on the 31st you are your aeroplane has take off correctly, safely, that means you have just earned your revenue. So the entry would be unearned revenue to revenue. In that case, the liability would be decreased on the debit side because unearned revenue would be on the debit side, and earned revenue, the revenue would be increased on the credit side because now the revenue is being earned. Adjusting entries for prepaid expenses. First one, payment of cash that is recorded as an asset because service or benefit will be received in future. पहले से आप पेमेंट ऑफ कैश कर लेते हैं बिकॉज उसके बेनिफिट्स फ्यूचर में आने होते हैं. दैट व्हाट वी कॉल्ड एज प्रीपेड एक्सपेंस. कैश पेमेंट बिफोर एक्सपेंस रिकॉर्डेड, यानी कि एक्सपेंस हुआ नहीं है आप पहले कैश दे दें, तो दैट इज नोन एज प्रीपेड एक्सपेंस. कौन कौन सी चीज आती है? इंश्योरेंस आती है, रेंट आता है, सप्लाईज आती हैं, बिल्डिंग एंड इक्विपमेंट्स आते हैं, एंड एडवर्टाइजिंग ऑल्सो कम इन दिस हेड, यानी एडवर्टाइजिंग भी इस हेड में आता है. एडजस्टिंग एंट्रीज फॉर प्रीपेड एक्सपेंस कैसे करते हैं एडजस्टिंग एंट्रीज? पायनियर परचेज्ड एडवर्टाइजिंग सप्लाई कॉस्टिंग 25,000 on October 5. Prepare the journal entry to record purchase of supply. So now what the entry would be? That purchased advertising supply costing 25,000. So first one, October 5, supply is debit because supplies we have purchased, and what we say need cash because cash से purchase हुए हैं ना. So we have just put the entry that 25,000 supplies and cash 25,000. Start first entry would be journal, but when with the passage of time we start using the supplies, we start passing the adjusting entries. So the T account of supply would be 25,000 debit and cash account would be 25,000 credit. An inventory count at a close of business on October reveals that 10,000 of advertising supplies are still on hand. Now what does that means? कि हमने जब टाइम एंड हो रहा है 31st, तो उसने फिजिकल काउंटिंग से पता लगा कि सिर्फ सप्लाई हमारे पास कितनी रह गई? 10,000. दैट मीन्स 15,000 सप्लाईज क्या हो गई हैं? यूज हो गई हैं. 15,000 $15,000 की सप्लाईज यूज हो गई हैं, और जब $15,000 की सप्लाईज यूज हो गई हैं तो दैट मीन्स द एंट्री वुड बी सप्लाईज एक्सपेंस 15,000 टू सप्लाईज, दैट इज 15,000. अच्छा, बी कीप इन माइंड वन मोर थिंग, व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट एडजस्टिंग एंट्रीज, कीप इन माइंड वी नेवर एवर इंक्लूड्स कैश इन दीज एडजस्टिंग एंट्रीज. हम इसमें कभी भी कैश का हेड यूज नहीं करते इन द एडजस्टिंग एंट्रीज, बिकॉज एडजस्टिंग एंट्रीज आर समथिंग डिफरेंट, वो कुछ और होती हैं. एंड दे इंक्लूड्स टू अकाउंट्स इन विच द इंटर ट्रांजेक्शंस इन्वॉल्व्ड, और उसी इंटर ट्रांजेक्शन को हम कहते हैं एडजस्टमेंट्स या एडजस्टिंग एंट्रीज. सो देयर वुड बी अ नो कैश अकाउंट इन द एडजस्टिंग एंट्रीज. So supplies 25,000, that means supplies are now credited by 15,000, and second account is supplies expense, that would be debited by 15,000 and supplies would be credited by 15,000. So the total balance of the supply debit balance is 10,000. Now adjusting entries for prepaid expense. What the adjusting entries involved for the prepaid expense? Statement presentation. Supplies identify that portion of assets cost that will provide future economic benefit. Supplies identify the portion of assets cost that will provide future benefit. हमने पहले से सप्लाई खरीद ली थी ना, काफी सारी परचेज कर ली थी, तो हमें क्यों परचेज की थी? बिकॉज वी आर एक्सपेक्टिंग दैट देयर वुड बी अ बेनिफिट इन द फ्यूचर, कोई फ्यूचर में बेनिफिट होगा. Pioneer Advertising Corporation balance sheet. First one is the cash account receivable less allowances. अलाउंस फॉर डाउटफुल अकाउंट्स वो उसमें से माइनस कर दिए गए हैं. ठीक है, जब हम ये आगे फर्दर में जाएंगे तो तब पढ़ेंगे कि अलाउंस फॉर डाउटफुल अकाउंट्स में क्या होता है, उसकी क्या इश्यूज होते हैं. सप्लाईज 10,000 जो अभी हम लोगों ने कैलकुलेट किया. प्रीपेड एक्सपेंस 5,500, इक्विपमेंट 50,000, लेस एक्यूमुलेटेड डेप्रिसिएशन 400, so that is 49,600. The total asset is 217,500, means 2,17,500. Liability and share stockholders equity. Liabilities note payable 50,000, account payable 25,000, unearned revenue 8,000, and salaries and wages payable 6,000, interest payable 5,000. So total liabilities includes 89,500. Stockholders equity 100,000, common stock retained earning 28,000. So the total would be 217,500. Now you can see that the balance sheet has been matched. 217,500, 2,17,500 दोनों का बैलेंस इक्वल आ रहा है. Now, adjusting entries for prepaid expenses. Statement presentations. Supplies expense identify that portion of asset cost that expired in October. वो कौन सा पोर्शन शो कर रहा था? दैट इज एक्सपायर्ड इन स्पेसिफिकली अक्टूबर. अक्टूबर में कितनी सप्लाईज यूज हुई है? 15,000. ये 10,000 सप्लाईज अभी भी स्टोर में काउंट से पता लगी कि अपने पास ही पड़ी है. तो दैट मीन्स सिर्फ अक्टूबर में कितने की सप्लाई यूज हुई है? 15,000 की. तो रेवेन्यू कैसे होगा? रेवेन्यू इज 106,000, सैलरीज एक्सपेंसेस 46,000, सैलरी सप्लाईज एक्सपेंस 15,000, रेंट एक्सपेंस 9,000, इंश्योरेंस एक्सपेंस 500, इंटरेस्ट एक्सपेंस 500, depreciation expense 400, bad debts expense 1,600. So that includes to the total expense of 73,000. And when we are going to minus is 106,000 minus 73,000, that is equal to 33,000. यानी टोटल कितना बन रहा है? 33,000. On October 4th, Pioneer paid 6,000 for 1 year fire insurance policy. Beginning October 1, show the entry to record purchase of insurance. Now उसने परचेज कितने की है? 1 साल की इंश्योरेंस परचेज की. That means definitely it includes prepaid insurance. Because 1 साल की परचेज की है और कब परचेज की है? अक्टूबर 1 को. तो एंट्री क्या पास होगी? सिंपल एंट्री. That is prepaid insurance to cash. Because सारे की सारी इंश्योरेंस कैश में. Now that's not an adjusting entry. The adjusting entries would be when on the 31st October you pass the entry that insurance expense debit to prepaid insurance credit. So the prepaid insurance the account would be debited by 6,000 and cash account would be credited by 6,000. An analysis of policy reveals that $500, 6,000 divided by 12 of insurance expires each month. Thus, Pioneer make following adjusting entry. That what I am talking about in previous slide. कि अब क्या करना है कि अब अक्टूबर 31 आ गया. अब आपने 31 को उसकी 1 महीने की इंश्योरेंस को आपने एक्सपेंस जनरेट कर देना है. तो इसका मतलब है 6,000 की टोटल थी तो 12 महीने की पे की थी तो 12 से डिवाइड किया तो 1 महीने की आ गई. दैट इज ऑफ 500. तो इसका मतलब है 500 की इंश्योरेंस इस 31 अक्टूबर को हमने अपेल कर ली. सो एंट्री क्या पास करेंगे? इंश्योरेंस एक्सपेंस डेबिट प्रीपेड इंश्योरेंस क्रेडिट बाय 500 बिकॉज 1 महीने की यूज की है 31 अक्टूबर को. और यहां पे क्या एंट्री होगी? नीचे प्रीपेड इंश्योरेंस वाला डिपार्टमेंट अकाउंट जो है वो 500 से लो हो जाएगा और इंश्योरेंस एक्सपेंस का 500 इंक्रीज कर जाएगा. ये 500 से इंक्रीज कर गया एंड दैट गॉट टू बी 500 लोअर. सो यहाँ पे आपके पास टोटल बैलेंस क्या आ रहा है? दैट इज डेबिट बैलेंस. किस चीज का आ रहा है ये? दैट इज डेबिट बैलेंस बिकॉज डेबिट साइड पे अभी भी 11 महीने की इंश्योरेंस पड़ी हुई है. वो इंश्योरेंस अभी वहां से नहीं हटी. एडजस्टिंग एंट्री फॉर प्रीपेड एक्सपेंस वो देखेंगे गौर से. Prepaid insurance identify that portion of asset cost that will provide future economic benefit. Now you can see the arrow. Arrow is on the prepaid insurance that is 5,500. That is 5,500. That is the prepaid insurance. You can see on the arrow side that prepaid expense is 5,500. Means 5,000 has been used on the October 31st because ये कब खरीदा था हमने प्रीपेड इंश्योरेंस? कब बाय की थी? When on October 1. So 1 month has passed. So that means October 1 to October 31st, 1 month has passed. So that means on October 31st we have just minuses 1 overall insurance of 1 month. The same things remains there. Equipment 50,000. Accumulated depreciation was being deducted of 400. That means still 217,500. Liabilities note payable 50,000. Accounts payable 25,000. Unearned service revenue 8,000. Salaries and wages payable 6,000. Interest payable 5,000. And total liabilities are 89,500. And stockholders equity, common stock 100,000, retained earning 28,000, total liability and stockholders equity 217,500. Now adjusting entry, again you can see that 500 now comes to the expense side. Be careful, keep in mind, when we have purchased the prepaid insurance to cash, prepaid insurance wouldn't come into the expense side. वो एक्सपेंस में सारा का सारा नहीं आएगा, बल्कि उसका पोर्शन जितना यूज होता जाएगा वो सिर्फ एक्सपेंस में आ रहा है कि जो हमने एक्सपेंस जनरेट किया है, दैट इज ऑफ प्रीपेड एक्सपेंस. इंश्योरेंस एक्सपेंस आइडेंटिफाइज दैट द पोर्शन ऑफ एसेट कॉस्ट दैट एक्सपायर्ड इन अक्टूबर. ये सिर्फ वो कॉस्ट शो कर रहे हैं जो ओवरऑल अक्टूबर में सिर्फ हुई है. मींस सैलरीज एंड वेजेस एक्सपेंस 46,000, दैट इज ऑल्सो ऑफ अक्टूबर. Supplies expense 15,000, that is also of October. Rent expense, that is also of October. Insurance expense, that is also being of October. Interest expense, that is also being of October. Depreciation also being of October. Bad debt expense, that is also being of October. So these all things are included in October. So 106,000 minus 73,000, that computes to the 33,000 of net income. Now adjusting entries for prepaid expenses, depreciation is also being included in this type of thing. Pioneer Advertising estimates depreciation on its office equipment to be $400 per month. According to Pioneer recognizes depreciation for October by following adjusting entries. Achha, one more thing, keep in mind that depreciation is a non-cash expense. हम जब डेप्रिसिएशन डिडक्ट करते हैं हम किसी को देते हैं? नो, हम किसी को नहीं देते डेप्रिसिएशन, बिकॉज ये हम वो रिकवर कर रहे होते हैं जो हमने इन्वेस्टमेंट की हुई है. दैट इज एक्चुअली अ रिकवरी ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट, रिटर्न ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट. के मैंने अगर 1 लाख का कोई इक्विपमेंट लिया है, मैं अगर उस पर $400 की डेप्रिसिएशन निकालूं, दैट मीन्स आई हैव रिकवर्ड द बेनिफिट ऑफ $400. यानी $400 का मैंने उसमें से बेनिफिट रिकवर कर लिया, यानी उसमें से इतनी इन्वेस्टमेंट वापस आ गई है. सो इट्स अ नॉन कैश आइटम. तो कैश तो इसमें इंक्लूड हो नहीं सकता, और ना ही हमें परचेज करनी पड़ती है बिकॉज वी आर डिडक्टिंग इन इट. सो इट हैज ओनली सिंगल एंट्री एंड दैट इज बेस्ड ऑन डेप्रिसिएशन एक्सपेंस टू अक्यूमुलेटेड डेप्रिसिएशन. दोनों इंक्लूड करेंगे तो यहां पे हमारे पास आ जाएगी वैल्यू दैट इज ऑफ 400. नाउ अक्यूमुलेटेड डेप्रिसिएशन इज समथिंग डिफरेंट एंड डेप्रिसिएशन एक्सपेंस इज समथिंग डिफरेंट. टू अकाउंट्स बीइंग मेड, वन इज डेप्रिसिएशन एक्सपेंस एंड अदर वन इज अक्यूमुलेटेड डेप्रिसिएशन. एंड वन डेप्रिसिएशन एक्सपेंस इज बीइंग डेबिटेड बाय 400 and accumulated depreciation is credited by 400. Keep in mind, depreciation expense is now 400. That comes to the income statement, but accumulated depreciation is now being deducted from the equipment in the asset side. Whenever we have next month have been come in which the depreciation is being deducted, and if that the depreciation is also of 400, that means depreciation expense will be of 400. But accumulated depreciation means we add another 400 in it because the word accumulated is being written with it. उसके साथ accumulated का word लिखा हुआ है. इसका मतलब ये है कि उधर पे accumulations हो रही हैं सारी की सारी depreciations की. हर तरह की depreciation, जितनी भी depreciation होगी उसमें से minus होगी because depreciation reduces book value. Means to say जितनी recover हो चुकी है वो आपको उसमें add करने की या balance sheet में add करने की जरूरत नहीं होती. Because that has been recovered, और जो चीज recover होगी you don't require to add it back. Adjusting entries for prepaid expense, you can see that on the arrow side less accumulated depreciation means the accumulated depreciation is of 400 and that is being written on this side of asset. अब अगला महीना आएगा और अगले महीने में भी suppose 400 की depreciation, तो वो इसमें 400 plus 400 800 हो जाएगा. That doesn't mean कि वो remains 400. That would be added in this account. And same is the case with the adjusting entries on the overall income statement, and that is on the depreciation expense. You can see the arrow is on 400. All other things remains the same. बाकी सारी चीजें same है, उनमें कोई changes नहीं आ रही हैं, लेकिन इसमें changes आ रही हैं. You can see that depreciation expense identifies that portion of assets cost that expired in October. यानी कि ये वो बता asset cost का portion बता रहा है that would be expired in October. कब expire हुआ है वो, सिर्फ अक्टूबर में कब expire हुआ है. एडजस्टिंग एंट्रीज फॉर अनअर्न्ड रेवेन्यूज के, अनअर्न्ड रेवेन्यूज के लिए क्या क्या एडजस्टिंग एंट्रीज रिक्वायर्ड होती हैं? रिसीट ऑफ कैश दैट इज रिकॉर्डेड एज लायबिलिटी, कैश रिसीट हुई है बिफोर रेवेन्यू रिकॉर्डेड, तो उसे हम क्या कहते हैं? अनअर्न्ड रेवेन्यू। अनअर्न्ड रेवेन्यू में क्या चीजें आ सकती हैं? ऑफर अकर्स, रेंट, रेंट अगर आपने किसी को घर किराए पे दिया हुआ या कोई आपने बिल्डिंग किराए पे दी हुई और वो एक साल का आपको रेंट एडवांस में दे गया, तो दैट मींस इफ he is going to leave that home या building before that, that means you have to give back the rent to that specific your client. Airline ticket that I have already discussed the example with you. Schools tuition, most of the time it happens so. Magazine subscriptions, that is also there. Customer deposits, that are also being a one type of unearned revenue. That's why bank always poses a liability side or a credit side for a deposit accounts, because it's a liability, they have to return it back to the customer. So that's why they have poses it on the liability side, because it's a deposit and it's a liability, and always be returned in a financial statement on the liability side. Unearned revenue, Pioneer Advertising received $12,000 on October 2 from KC for advertising service expected to be completed by December 31st. यानी उसने कितना रिसीव किया है? 12,000 on October 2 for advertising expected to be completed on 31st. 31st को आपने सर्विसेज कंप्लीट करनी है, लेकिन पैसे अभी मिल गए हैं. So the entry would be cash to unearned advertising revenue. कैश का बैलेंस 12,000 डेबिट, unearned revenue का 12,000 credit. Now unearned revenue here it is a liability, but analysis reveals that Pioneer earned $4,000 of advertising service in October. Thus Pioneer makes the following adjusting entries. Now how much have they earned? Pioneer कितना earn किया? 4,000. That means total unearned में कितना पड़ा था हमारे पास? 12,000. तो 12,000 में से सिर्फ $4,000 अभी earn किए हैं. So that means unearned revenue account would be reduced by 4,000. कितने से reduce करेगा? 4,000 से. तो the unearned revenue would be on the debit side and earned revenue would be on credit side by 4,000, because only 4,000 out of 12,000 would be earned. So in that case, the revenue would be of unearned revenue debited 4,000 and earned revenue would be of 100,000 and plus 4,000. Now the balance of unearned revenue remains 8,000, because 12,000 minus 4,000, that remains to the 8,000, and service revenue, that is now 104,000. Now how the adjustments are being taken in? Unearned service revenue identifies that the portion of liability that not being earned. You can see that it's on the liability side. See the arrow. Unearned service revenue 8,000 is being added over there. Now another thing, revenue, service revenue, it is being added of 106,000. That means it is also being added over here. See the arrow. Service revenue 106,000. So that's the end of the today's session 4, and this is not the end of the whole accounting system. We are going to continue it further. That's it to be continued. But what we have discussed today is the whole posting of a ledger. We have studied the whole accounting cycle towards up to the adjusting entries. The next thing is the financial statement, preparation of worksheets, closing entries, post closing trial balances, and after that the closing trial balance of it. So that's the end of the today's session. Allah Hafiz.